Shams of Tabriz. Konya, June 12, 1245. Befuddled believer. If every Ramadan one fasts in the name of God and every Eid one sacrifices a sheep or a goat as an atonement for his sins, if all his life one strives to make the pilgrimage to Mecca and 5 times a day kneels on a prayer rug but at the same time has no room for love in his heart, what is the use of all this trouble? Faith is only a word if there is no love at its center, so flaccid and lifeless, vague and hollow, not anything you could truly feel. Do they think God resides in Mecca or Medina? Or in some local mosque somewhere? How can they imagine that God could be confined to limited space when He openly says, "Neither my heaven nor my earth embraces me, but the heart of my believing servant does embrace me"? Pity the fool who thinks the boundaries of his mortal mind are the boundaries of God the Almighty. Pity the ignorant who assume they can negotiate and settle debts with God. Do such people think God is a grocer who attempts to weigh our virtues and our wrongdoings on 2 separate scales? Is he a clerk meticulously writing down our sins in his accounting book so as to make us pay him back someday? Is this their notion of oneness? Neither a grocer nor a clerk. My God is a magnificent God. A living God. Why would I want a dead God? Alive He is. His name is Al-Hayy, the ever-living. Why would I wallow in endless fears and anxieties, always restricted by prohibitions and limitations? Infinitely compassionate He is. The name is Al-Wadud. All praiseworthy He is. I praise Him with all my words and deeds, as naturally and effortlessly as I breathe. The name is Al-Hamid. How can I ever spread gossip and slander if I know deep down in my heart that God hears and sees it all? His name is Al-Basir. Beautiful beyond all dreams and hopes. Al-Jamal, Al-Qayyum, Al-Rahman, Al-Rahim. Through famine and flood, dry and athirst, I will sing and dance for Him till my knees buckle, my body collapses, and my heart stops pounding. I will smash my ego to smithereens, until I am no more than a particle of nothingness, the wayfarer of pure emptiness, the dust of the dust in His great architecture. Gratefully, joyously, and relentlessly, I commend His splendor and generosity. I thank Him for all the things He has both given and denied me, for only He knows what is best for me. Recalling another rule on my list, I felt a fresh wave of happiness and hope. The human being has a unique place among God's creation. I breathed into him of my spirit, God says. Each and every one of us without exception is designed to be God's delegate on earth. Ask yourself, just how often do you behave like a delegate, if you ever do so? Remember, it falls upon each of us to discover the divine spirit inside and live by it. Instead of losing themselves in the love of God and waging a war against their ego, religious zealots fight other people, generating wave after wave of fear. Looking at the whole universe with fear-tinted eyes, it is no wonder that they see a plethora of things to be afraid of. Wherever there is an earthquake, drought, or any other calamity, they take it as a sign of divine wrath, as if God does not openly say, "My compassion outweighs my wrath." Always resentful of somebody for this or that, they seem to expect God the Almighty to step in on their behalf and take their pitiful revenges. Their life is a state of uninterrupted bitterness and hostility, a discontentment so vast it follows them wherever they go, like a black cloud, darkening both their past and their future. There is such a thing in faith as not being able to see the forest for the trees. The totality of religion is far greater and deeper than the sum of its component parts. Individual rules need to be read in the light of the whole. And the whole is concealed in the essence. Instead of searching for the essence of the Quran and embracing it as a whole, however, the bigots single out a specific verse or two, giving priority to the divine commands that they deem to be in tune with their fearful minds. They keep reminding everyone that on the day of judgment all human beings will be forced to walk the bridge of Sirat, thinner than a hair, sharper than a razor. Unable to cross the bridge, the sinful will tumble into the pits of hell underneath, where they will suffer forever. Those who have led a virtuous life will make it to the other end of the bridge, where they will be rewarded with exotic fruits, sweet waters, and virgins. This, in a nutshell, is their notion of afterlife. So great is their obsession with horrors and rewards, flames and fruits, angels and demons, that in their itch to reach a future that will justify who they are today they forget about God. Don't they know one of the 40 rules? Hell is in the here and now. So is heaven. Quit worrying about hell or dreaming about heaven, as they are both present inside this very moment. Every time we fall in love, we ascend to heaven. Every time we hate, envy, or fight someone, we tumble straight into the fires of hell. This is what rule number 25 is about. Is there a worse hell than the torment a man suffers when he knows deep down in his conscience that he has done something wrong, awfully wrong? Ask that man. He will tell you what hell is. Is there a better paradise than the bliss that descends upon a man at those rare moments in life when the bolts of the universe fly open and he feels in possession of all the secrets of eternity and fully united with God? Ask that man. He will tell you what heaven is. Why worry so much about the aftermath, an imaginary future, when this very moment is the only time we can truly and fully experience both the presence and the absence of God in our lives? Motivated by neither the fear of punishment in hell nor the desire to be rewarded in heaven, Sufis love God simply because they love Him, pure and easy, untainted and non-negotiable. Love is the reason. Love is the goal. And when you love God so much, when you love each and every one of His creations because of Him and thanks to Him, extraneous categories melt into thin air. From that point on, there can be no I anymore. All you amount to is a zero so big it covers your whole being. The other day Rumi and I were contemplating these issues when all of a sudden he closed his eyes and uttered the following lines. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen. Not any religion or cultural system. I am not of the East, nor of the West. My place is placeless, a trace of the traceless. Rumi thinks he can never be a poet. But there is a poet in him. And a fabulous one. Now that poet is being revealed. Yes, Rumi is right. He is neither of the East nor of the West. He belongs in the kingdom of love. He belongs to the beloved. Ella. Northampton, June 12, 2008. By now Ella had finished reading Sweet Blasphemy and was putting the final touches on her editorial report. Although she was dying to discuss the details of his novel with Aziz, her sense of professionalism stopped her. It wouldn't be right. Not before she was done with the assignment. She hadn't even told Aziz that after reading his novel she had bought a copy of Rumi's poems and was now reading at least a few poems every night before going to sleep. She had so neatly separated her work on the novel from her exchange with the author. But on the 12th of June, something happened that blurred the line between the two forever. Up until that day, Ella had never seen a picture of Aziz. There being no photos of him on his website, she had no idea what he looked like. In the beginning she had enjoyed the mystery of writing to a man with no face. But over time her curiosity began to get the best of her, and the need to put a face to his messages tugged at her. He had never asked for a picture of her, which she found odd, really odd. So, out of the blue, she sent him a picture of herself. There she was, out on the porch with dear Spirit, wearing a skimpy cerulean dress that slightly revealed her curves. She was smiling in the picture, a half-pleased, half-troubled smile. Her fingers firmly grasped the dog's collar, as if trying to derive some strength from him. Above them the sky was a patchwork of grays and purples. It wasn't one of her best pictures, but there was something spiritual, almost otherworldly, in this one. Or so she hoped. Ella sent it as an email attachment and then simply waited. It was her way of asking Aziz to send her his photo. He did. When Ella saw the picture Aziz sent her, she thought it must have been taken somewhere in the Far East, not that she had ever been there. In the picture, Aziz was surrounded by more than a dozen dark-haired native children of every age. Dressed in a black shirt and black trousers, he had a lean build, a sharp nose, high cheekbones, and long, dark, wavy hair falling to his shoulders. His eyes were two emeralds brimming with energy and something else that Ella recognized as compassion. He wore a single earring and a necklace with an intricate shape that Ella couldn't make out. In the background was a silvery lake surrounded by tall grass, and in one corner loomed the shadow of something or someone that was outside the frame. As she inspected the man in the picture, taking in every detail, Ella had a feeling she recognized him from somewhere. As bizarre as it felt, she could swear she had seen him before. And suddenly she knew. Shams of Tabriz bore more than a passing resemblance to Aziz Zahara. He looked exactly the way Shams was described in the manuscript before he headed to Konya to meet Rumi. Ella wondered if Aziz had deliberately based his character's looks on himself. As a writer, he might have wanted to create his central character in his own image, just as God had created human beings in his image. As she considered this, another possibility arose. Could it be that the real Shams of Tabriz had looked just as he was described in the book, in which case it could only mean that there was a surprising resemblance between two men almost 800 years apart? Could it be that the resemblance was beyond the control and perhaps even the knowledge of the author? The more thought Ella put into this dilemma, the more strongly she suspected that Shams of Tabriz and Aziz Zahara could be connected in a way that went beyond a simple literary gimmick. The discovery had two unexpected impacts on Ella. First, she felt the need to go back to Sweet Blasphemy and read the novel again, with a different eye, not for the sake of the story this time but to find the author hidden in its central character, to find the Aziz and Shams of Tabriz. Second, she became more intrigued by Aziz's personality. Who was he? What was his story? In an earlier email, he had told her he was Scottish, but then why did he have an Eastern name, Aziz? Was it his real name? Or was it his Sufi name? And by the way, what did it mean to be a Sufi? There was something else that occupied her mind, the very first, almost imperceptible signs of desire. It had been such a long time since she'd last felt it that it took her a few extra seconds to recognize the feeling. But it was there. Strong, prodding, and disobedient. She realized that she desired the man in the picture and wondered what it would be like to kiss him. The feeling was so unexpected and embarrassing that she quickly turned off her laptop, as though the man in the picture could otherwise suck her in. Bibers the Warrior. Konya, July 10, 1245. Bibers, my son, trust no one, my uncle says, because the world is getting more corrupt each day. He claims that the only time when things were different was during the Golden Age, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was duly in charge. Since his death everything has been going downhill. But if you ask me, any place where there are more than two people is bound to become a battleground. Even at the time of the Prophet, people had their share of hostilities, didn't they? War is the core of life. The lion eats the deer, and vultures reduce to bare bones what remains of the carcass. Nature is cruel. On land, in sea or air, for every creature without exception, there is only one way to survive, to be shrewder and stronger than your worst enemy. To stay alive you need to fight. It's as simple as that. And fight we must. Even the most naive can see there is no other way in this day and age. Things took a nasty turn 5 years ago when 100 Mongol diplomats sent out by Genghis Khan to negotiate for peace were all slaughtered. After that, Genghis Khan turned into a fireball of fury, declaring war against Islam. How and why the diplomats were killed, nobody could say. Some people suspected that it was Genghis Khan himself who had his own diplomats killed, so that he could start this massive war campaign in the first place. It could be true. One never knows. But I do know that in 5 years the Mongols devastated the whole Khorasan area, causing destruction and death everywhere they galloped. And 2 years ago they defeated the Seljuk forces at Kozadag, turning the Sultan into a tribute-paying vassal. The only reason the Mongols didn't wipe us out is that it is more profitable for them to keep us under their yoke. Wars might be present since time immemorial, at least since Cain killed his brother Abel, but the Mongol army is like nothing we have seen before. Specialized in more ways than one, they use a vast array of weapons, each designed for a specific purpose. Every Mongol soldier is heavily armored, with a mace, an axe, a saber, and a spear. On top of that, they have arrows that can penetrate armor, set whole villages ablaze, poison their victims, or pierce the hardest bones in the human body. They even have whistling arrows, which they use to send signals from one battalion to another. With such well-developed warfare skills and no god to fear, the Mongols attack and annihilate every city, town, and village on their way. Even ancient cities like Bukhara have been turned into heaps of rubble. And it is not only the Mongols. We need to get Jerusalem back from the Crusaders, not to mention the pressure from the Byzantines and the rivalry between Shiites and Sunnis. When surrounded by cold-blooded enemies on all sides, how can we afford to be peaceful? This is why people like Rumi get on my nerves. I don't care how highly everyone thinks of him. For me he is a coward who spreads nothing but cowardice. He might have been a good scholar in the past, but nowadays he is clearly under the influence of that heretic Shams. At a time when the enemies of Islam are looming large, what does Rumi preach? Peace. Passivity. Submission. Brother, stand the pain. Escape the poison of your impulses. The sky will bow to your beauty. If you do. That way a thorn expands to a rose. A particular glows with the universal. Rumi preaches submissiveness, turning Muslims into a flock of sheep, meek and timid. He says for every prophet there is a community of followers, and for every community there is an appointed time. Other than love, his favorite words seem to be patience, balance, and tolerance. If it were up to him, we would all just sit in our houses and wait to be slaughtered by our enemies or be stricken by some other calamity. And I am sure he would then come and briefly examine the wreck, calling it baraka. There are people who have heard him say, when school and mosque and minaret get torn down, then dervishes can begin their community. Now, what kind of talk is that? And when you come to think of it, the only reason Rumi ended up in this city is that decades ago his family left Afghanistan seeking refuge in Anatolia. Many other powerful and wealthy people at the time had received an open invitation from the Sultan of Seljuks, among them Rumi's father. Thus sheltered and privileged and always showered with attention and approval, Rumi's family left the bedlam of Afghanistan for the tranquil orchards of Konya. It's easy to preach tolerance when you have a history like that. The other day I heard a story that Shams of Tabriz told a group of people in the bazaar. He said that Ali, the Prophet's successor and companion, was fighting with an infidel on a battlefield. Ali was about to thrust his sword into the other man's heart when all of a sudden the infidel raised his head and spit at him. Ali immediately dropped his sword, took a deep breath, and walked away. The infidel was stunned. He ran after Ali and asked him why he was letting him go. "Because I'm very angry at you," said Ali. "Then why don't you kill me?" the infidel asked. "I don't understand." Ali explained, "When you spit in my face, I got very angry. My ego was provoked, yearning for revenge. If I kill you now, I'll be following my ego. And that would be a huge mistake." So Ali set the man free. The infidel was so touched that he became Ali's friend and follower, and in time he converted to Islam of his own free will. This, apparently, is the kind of story Shams of Tabriz likes to tell. And what is his message? Let the infidels spit in your face. I say, over my dead body. Infidel or not, nobody can spit in the face of the warrior. Ella. Northampton, June 13, 2008. Beloved Aziz. You're going to think I'm crazy, but there's something I've been meaning to ask you. Are you Shams? Or is it the other way round? Is Shams you? Yours sincerely, Ella. Dear Ella. Shams is the person who was responsible for the transformation of Rumi from a local cleric to a world-famous poet and mystic. Master Sameed used to say to me, even if there might be a Shams equivalent in some people, what matters is, where are the Rumis to see it? Warm regards, Aziz. Dear Aziz. Who is Master Sameed? Best, Ella. Beloved Ella. It's a long story. Do you really want to know? Warmly, Aziz. Dear Aziz. I have plenty of time. Love, Ella. Rumi. Konya, August 2, 1245. Bountiful is your life, full and complete. Or so you think, until someone comes along and makes you realize what you have been missing all this time. Like a mirror that reflects what is absent rather than present, he shows you the void in your soul, the void you have resisted seeing. That person can be a lover, a friend, or a spiritual master. Sometimes it can be a child to look after. What matters is to find the soul that will complete yours. All the prophets have given the same advice, find the one who will be your mirror. For me that mirror is Shams of Tabriz. Until he came and forced me to look deep into the crannies of my soul, I had not faced the fundamental truth about myself, that though successful and prosperous outside, I was lonely and unfulfilled inside. It's as if for years on end you compile a personal dictionary. In it you give your definition of every concept that matters to you, such as truth, happiness, or beauty. At every major turning point in life, you refer to this dictionary, hardly ever feeling the need to question its premises. Then one day a stranger comes and snatches your precious dictionary and throws it away. All your definitions need to be redefined, he says. It's time for you to unlearn everything you know. And you, for some reason unbeknownst to your mind but obvious to your heart, instead of raising objections or getting cross with him, gladly comply. This is what Shams has done to me. Our friendship has taught me so much. But more than that, he has taught me to unlearn everything I knew. When you love someone this much, you expect everyone around you to feel the same way, sharing your joy and euphoria. And when that doesn't happen, you feel surprised, then offended and betrayed. How could I possibly make my family and friends see what I see? How could I describe the indescribable? Shams is my sea of mercy and grace. He is my sun of truth and faith. I call him the King of Kings of Spirit. He is my fountain of life and my tall cypress tree, majestic and evergreen. His companionship is like the fourth reading of the Quran, a journey that can only be experienced from within but never grasped from the outside. Unfortunately, most people make their evaluations based on images and hearsay. To them Shams is an eccentric dervish. They think he behaves bizarrely and speaks blasphemy, that he is utterly unpredictable and unreliable. To me, however, he is the epitome of love that moves the whole universe, at times retreating into the background and holding every piece together, at times exploding in bursts. An encounter of this kind happens once in a lifetime. Once in 38 years. Ever since Shams came into our lives, people have been asking me what it is in him that I find so special. But there is no way I can answer them. At the end of the day, those who ask this question are the ones who won't understand it, and as for those who do understand, they don't ask such things. The quandary I find myself in reminds me of the story of Layla and Harun ar-Rashid, the famous Abbasid emperor. Upon hearing that a Bedouin poet named Qais had fallen hopelessly in love with Layla and lost his mind for her, and was therefore named Majnun, the madman, the emperor became very curious about the woman who had caused such misery. This Layla must be a very special creature, he thought. A woman far superior to all other women. Perhaps she is an enchantress unequaled in beauty and charm. Excited, intrigued, he played every trick in the book to find a way to see Layla with his own eyes. Finally one day they brought Layla to the emperor's palace. When she took off her veil, Harun ar-Rashid was disillusioned. Not that Layla was ugly, crippled, or old. But she wasn't extraordinarily attractive either. She was a human being with ordinary human needs and several defects, a simple woman, like countless others. The emperor did not hide his disappointment. Are you the one Majnun has been crazy about? Why, you look so ordinary. What is so special about you? Layla broke into a smile. Yes, I am Layla. But you are not Majnun, she answered. You have to see me with the eyes of Majnun. Otherwise you could never solve this mystery called love. How can I explain the same mystery to my family, friends, or students? How can I make them understand that for them to grasp what is so special about Shams of Tabriz, they have to start looking at him with the eyes of Majnun? Is there a way to grasp what love means without becoming a lover first? Love cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. Love cannot be explained, yet it explains all.